Welcome, everyone. Hi. I want to thank you all for joining us for MakeBlock's very first ever webinar. So I hope everything goes smoothly. If you're all educators, you know that the one thing that you cannot count on is technology to do what you thought it was going to do. So I think that we're going to be okay. But if something wacky happens, we'll just try to pop right back in. So my name is Christy. I'm the general manager for MakeBlock here in the United States. And I've got one of my wonderful and amazing colleagues here with me, Rosemary. You want to wave, Rosemary? And we're going to be your co-presenters today. Rosemary, you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Rosemary Bianchi. I am from South Carolina in the United States. I am a former classroom teacher with 12 years of experience teaching computer science and STEM. And I'm looking forward to teaching you this mBlock series on behalf of makeblock. And I very much enjoy their hardware as well as mBlock. So we're going to have a lot of fun in the coming weeks ahead.
Awesome. So I do want to take a minute because I know we've got people joining us from all over, and I'm not sure how many people are familiar with MakeBlock. So I wanted to take a minute, and especially for our parents that may not be familiar, and give you some overview of who we are. First of all, I know that everyone is working in this digital environment, and it's not really easy. I personally have been working in a digital environment for 13 years, and it's still not easy. um, but I also know that as teachers and parents, this time there's just no substitute for having a real classroom. What happens in the classroom when kids are collaborating with each other and parents are teachers are collaborating with our students, there's just no replacement for that dynamic learning human experience. But through what we're doing, we're hoping that we can actually try to do our best to recreate that. It's our goal to help you become more able to provide these opportunities for students via online. And it's also our opportunity to help our parents become learners of STEM education, and so that they can actually be a teacher and an enabler of STEM learning. So we're excited to be able to offer this kind of live online as well as in a collaborative environment via our community, and connecting with Google Classroom. So while it's not exactly that in the same space environment, we're going to try and make it as dynamic and human as we possibly can. So just because we're not in the same room doesn't mean we all can't be actively learning and engaging, right? And up to this point, everyone should have received an email in their inbox, and that email should contain all the links that you need for the lesson. So each week, since you've signed up, you'll successively receive an email with the upcoming links to the lesson and any other downloadables that you may need. If you haven't received that, or if you are missing that at some point, please be checking your spam mail because it could end up in that box. So if you haven't actually had a chance to go download our software or to download the actual lesson plans, as we talk in the next few minutes, this might be a perfect time to do that. And just hop on over to that email and click into the resources, and you can download. And I would also kind of recommend that for the lesson plan, you might actually want to print that out. I think it might be easier for you to have that in your hands and then watch what's going on the screen with Rosemary. So instead of trying to toggle back and forth. So I'm going to head on over to our website. There we go. So in case you're not familiar with MakeBlock, we're actually a hardware and a software provider. So we provide STEM solutions for schools and classrooms across the globe. And our materials, like I said, will consist of hardware and software. And you can see some of those items here as I kind of click through. Most of them are going to be based on a robotics platform. So the materials that you see are going to be partnered with the software to create robots that students will do problem solving, STEAM lessons around. But we also have other items that help kids take their imagination into real life, like the 3D printers and the laser cutters. So we give kids, this kind of ready to go box, but we also give them the option to do whatever their mind can imagine. All right. So STEAM on Board, once you navigate over to this page, you'll find all of your resources for STEAM on Board. So this was actually an initiative that was created as a way for makeblock to lift barriers of access to the quality STEAM materials and resources that we provide, as well as professional development for teachers across the globe. So this was supposed to be an in-field initiative, but in fact, when COVID came to forcing us all home, we really wanted to think about how can we take this initiative, rethink it, and still meet the goals of lifting barriers of access, but giving our educators something that they can use from home. So that's how this became an online option, setting up these meetings for us to help educate parents and educate teachers on how they continue the STEM education, the computer science learning at home, but without needing that hardware access. So we really wanted to make this something that you didn't have to have our hardware to do. So in fact, I know that we're all from all over. I think it might be interesting to see exactly where everyone is from. There is a chat box for you. Rosemary, can you tell me where that chat box, if you're an attendee, is located?
If they're in full screen, they may need to, in the top right corner, exit full screen to see the chat box, or along the bottom line, there might be a bar across the bottom of their screen that allows them to click the chat icon to see it if you don't currently have it visible. So you'll need to kind of see the Zoom interface to see the chat box.
Yeah. So I think it would be interesting to see where everyone is from. So just test out your chat box and tell us where you're from. All right, where's my chat box? That's the real question. There it is.
Yeah, yours is in the screen.
Yeah. Here. Let me put this in the corner over here. Oh, cool. Japan, Canada, Poland. Oh my gosh. Netherlands. This is so cool. So I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. So I'm on the East Coast in the United States. And Rosemary is about, what, an hour and a half down the road?
I'm actually in Greenville now, so I'm about 4 hours.
Okay, a little bit further. All right, so let's keep an eye on that. That's really fun. I think it's Nice, Italy. Yeah, oh, somebody from Lexington. Hi, Lois. So this initiative for us, we really wanted to, like I said, lift the barriers of access. So there's actually no coding experience required. You can really do this anytime, anywhere you have access to a computer, and everything is going to be free and downloadable for anyone to have. So this is our schedule for our classes. We're going to try to stick to 2 classes per week, one on Thursdays and one on Tuesdays. Let me show you the corrected screen. There we go. So our next class is going to be on April 7th, where we cover lesson 2, Panda's Greeting. We hope to see you there. And the curriculum that we're going to provide, again, is all going to be downloadable and free. We're going to be basing this on our mBlock 5 software. And if you're not familiar with mBlock 5, it is based on Scratch software, which a lot of our students in the United States already have some kind of experience with. So this should be an easy transition, easy for them to use. And really, block-based programming itself is very easy. The nice thing about mBlock 5 is that it's a really easy to get started, but it's actually also very powerful. It's a side by side, or it allows side by side with Python programming. So when you allow that text based programming side by side with the block, the kids get more acquainted with what they would see in a real work situation. So they can actually easily transition from a block based to a text based. So as kids grow in mBlock 5 through the grade levels and transition to Python or Arduino C, they're actually transitioning to a programming language that they would see in a workplace in the future should they decide to go into some sort of computer programming. So this is kind of unique for us in that we allow that transition all in one screen. And from an educator's perspective, it's important to give kids that kind of exposure before we try to transition them. Another thing we've done to help our educators communicate with their students is we're integrating with Google Classroom. So all of these lessons and our sharing, which we'll be doing in the future, will show you how to share and collaborate through Google Classroom. And additionally, to help kind of support everyone through this is we're going to be sharing projects in our educator community. So you'll get a link to our educator community after, I believe, the second lesson, and we'll start posting some of our projects there. And you'll get some support there. We'll be monitoring that. We can answer your questions. You can ask questions of other community members. So it's a great place for us to, again, try to engage one another and stay connected when we're really so far apart. All right. And from there, I guess the next thing I've got is to pass this along to my wonderful, beautiful co-host, Rosemary.
Well, thank you.
Take this.
Thank you, Christy, for the opportunity to share these lessons. If you want to go ahead and stop sharing your screen so I can take over, that would be great. So a couple housekeeping things. You'll notice in the chat that one of the makeblock team members, Patrick, is replying to some of the questions. Thank you, Patrick. Also, you will see that Christy's gonna jump in here and also be helping answer questions as we go through the remainder of this webinar. So if you received the when you received the email, you should have received a folder with some zipped files. So when you received your folder, that's what I want you, if you want to follow along with this lesson, I want you to try and navigate right now on your computer to find the lesson 1 folder, because that's where we're going to begin today. So I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to find that folder and navigate there. And I am going to talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. So as Christy said, these lessons are an opportunity for makeblock to bring resources to you while you are, a lot of you are distance learning, but also these lessons are designed to be able to continue into the classroom when you do have the opportunity to return with students. So the lessons are very versatile for that use for you. So we hope that you can find them useful. I did see a question in the chat. The question in the chat was about, was asking about whether or not you needed hardware in order to use the makeblock platform. And the answer there is for the lessons for this curriculum, they're going to be covering the mBlock software, and they will not incorporate hardware until far into the lessons. I believe we begin on the last 4 lessons of the curriculum. So you can use this curriculum with students while you're distance learning, and they can learn mBlock without needing to have hardware at home with them. So I just wanted to make sure that was very clear as we continue through the lessons and continue with our learning today, is that you do not need to have that any makeblock hardware in order to begin and use these lessons with your students. And just a reminder, Christy and Patrick, if there's a question that comes up that you need me to address in the middle, feel free to interrupt me if it's important as we go along.
I think I'll just mention that there's a total planned 16 lessons. So the last 4, if you want to use hardware, you can, but there will be 12 lessons that in no way need them.
Thank you. So approximately 12 hours of learning without needing the hardware. Perfect. So I have opened on my screen the lesson plan, the PowerPoint slides, as well as I have installed mBlock. So Christy mentioned installing mBlock at the beginning of the webinar, and you can find example programs in the example program folder. And so those are the files that we'll be working with as I go through the lesson. So this is the PDF of lesson 1, which is Get to Know mBlock. And when we work through these webinars, this series as we continue, I'm going to be wearing a few different hats. So sometimes I'll put on my teacher hat and I will give you teacher tips and talk to you about how to implement a portion of a lesson in your classroom. And sometimes I'm going to let you guys wear the student hat, where I'm actually teaching the lesson and walking you through the steps of the tutorial or steps of the lesson as though you are students. So sometimes we'll be talking and I'll be giving you teaching tips, and sometimes I'll be walking you through the lesson as though you are students. So I'm going to start by giving you an overview of lesson 1, which will get you familiar with how the lessons are going to be formatted as we go through the curriculum in the coming days ahead. So each lesson starts off with the first page and a half or so giving you basic information about the lesson. This lesson is a beginner lesson. Obviously, it's lesson 1, and it's approximately a 45-minute lesson. We can see by the objectives that we're going to be talking about computer programming, and that students are going to be able to identify computer programs and define computer programming. We're going to understand some characteristics of a block-based programming language, and we're going to look at some mBlock projects in the workspace. In this lesson specifically, we will be looking at what is a computer program through the lens of a computer game. So we're going to be opening up a computer game and looking at that. And we're going to be seeing how it is a collection of instructions that can be executed by a computer to perform the task that it's been programmed to perform. We're also going to get students to think critically. We're going to get them to collaborate and communicate around computing. We're going to have them decompose the game and identify how the game is played and how the game works. And they're going to use their logic and observation skills to write instructions for the game that is provided for them. And then they'll share those and get peer feedback as they work through the lesson. As stated at the beginning, you do need to have a computer with either mBlock installed, or as you can see here, there's a link. You can actually use the web app or the web-based version if you're on a Chromebook, or if you just don't have the software installed, the web version will also work for these lessons. There's alignment to the CSTA and IST standards, and those will progress as we go through all of the lessons. So if you are mapping your curriculum to those national frameworks and those national standards, you can see how this curriculum will fit right in with what you're doing already in your classrooms. Each lesson plan has a warm-up activity, and it varies in length. Lesson 1 has a 5-minute warm-up, which we'll go through in a minute. And as you progress through the lesson, you'll see that there's different headings and different sections in the lesson. So this lesson gives them time to play a game. So we have game time incorporated in lesson 1. Lessons do have hands-on learning. There's guided instruction as well as independent practice in many of the lessons. And so as you progress through, there will be opportunities for the teacher to guide the learning and teach concepts for programming as well as how the mBlock software works. And there are assessment checkpoints throughout the lessons as well as extensions built in. So the extension activities take the learning beyond the basics of the lesson. So you can continue to scaffold this with your students if they need that additional learning. And then there's a hands-on section where students will get instruction as well as practice the skills being taught in each lesson. And then each lesson closes with a wrap up. And the wrap up also varies in length and has different activities incorporated into it. But all of the lessons have a short 3-question review at the end so that you can assess some of the concepts and skills taught in the lesson. So that's an overview of how these lessons are going to be structured. And what we're going to do is I'm going to now kind of shift gears and we're going to jump into teaching this lesson. So now that you have gotten an overview of how the lesson plan is structured, I'm going to switch over to the slides. You may want to keep the lesson plan visible as we go through it, but I'm going to switch over to the slide deck that is given and provided by makeblock with your downloadable activities. And this slides presentation has been designed in order to provide a teaching aid. If you're working on this at home as a parent, you might want to print the slide deck or provide the slide deck electronically to your learner and let them follow along the slide deck, because all of the answer keys aren't incorporated into the slide deck as they are in the lesson plan. So it's a great tool if you are working with students on an individual basis as well, to provide them with the slide deck, and then the parent or the teacher can have the lesson plan for that added information that is the behind the scenes, the teaching tips, and the content knowledge that goes beyond what's in the slides for the teacher to have what they need to feel equipped to teach the lesson. So as we go through, again, I'm going to be going through the slides. So lesson 1 is all about getting to know mBlock. And we can't begin in mBlock until we see it, right? So when we go through this lesson, we're going to meet our key character here. Hello, everyone. I'm an engineer from the Smart Star. You can call me Panda. In future lessons, we will study programming together. Do you know what you can do with programming? So I want you to take a moment to look around you. What are you seeing around you right now that could have been programmed, that a programmer may have taken time to write a program to control? So think about, look around, go ahead and in the chat box, provide what you think around you might have been programmed by a programmer. What might we see? So we have an exercise bike. Absolutely. If it's digital or electronic, absolutely. An intercom system, a Yamaha keyboard, like a musical keyboard, piano keyboard. Awesome. Smart light bulbs. Absolutely. How about this? What's your favorite activity what do you think your student or your learner's favorite activity is to do on your computer or your phone? What do you like to do on your phone or computer? Gaming. That's a fun activity, and a lot of students will give that answer for sure. I like to work. I work on my devices. I definitely communicate a lot. How about that? Fortnite, game playing, YouTube, watching YouTube and videos. Awesome. So these apps or these activities or these your refrigerator or your smart light bulbs, what do they have in common? They were all programmed by somebody. They all have computer programming. And we can see that some of the examples that you as learners have provided is that programming can be used for a lot of different things. And some examples that we can see in our slides presentation is that programming can be used to make mobile apps and software apps for our phones. They can be used to make computer games or video game systems, but programming can also be used to control physical devices like a robot or your Fitbit or your refrigerator, as somebody said, or your smart light bulbs. So, programming is the computer program behind the scenes that is making all of these wonderful activities in our lives available to us. We are able to you're able to enjoy all of these technologies because somebody wrote a computer program so that we can interact with them. So that's a really awesome way for you to engage learners in a conversation about what's happening with these devices behind the scenes. So we're going to now jump into a little bit of interactive game time. You're going to get to explore a pre-made example project that comes with makeblock, mBlock, and you can download it or open it from the files that you downloaded for the curriculum. But we're going to explore an mBlock project. So there are two ways to open this file. We can, first and foremost, we need to have the mBlock software open on our computer. So again, you can open the mBlock software that you have installed, or you can open the mBlock software that you installed, or you can go to the mBlock IDE on the website. Those links are in the lesson plan. If you have it installed, it should be an icon on your desktop. And then we're going to go, you can either go to the tutorials in the upper right-hand corner and open the example program that is built into your software. Or if you have downloaded the software example programs, and you can just double click or open the Space Adventure game. That is the program we are opening, is the Space Adventure game. Okay. So while you're getting that open, I'm going to give some simple instructions, and then I'm going to give you about a 3-minute time frame to play the game. And that's actually the time frame also given in the lesson, because it's just an exploration activity. This is not this lesson isn't written for your students to learn everything that this game does. It's for them to enjoy playing. Christy, do you mind muting that mic? So this lesson is written for students to just get exposure to the software so they can get an idea of what this game does. They are not going to be mastering or being able to read in detail all of the program that is in this game, and that's okay. We just want them to play the game and experience it. So when you get the game open, you will see this image in the top left corner of your screen. And there's a few instructions that are set up for you to be successful with this gameplay activity that I'm about to have you participate in. So you need to know a few icons on the screen. We have the green flag icon, which starts the program. We have the stop icon, which stops the program. And then we have the ability to enter and exit full screen mode. Then we have the ability to do that. And I'll show you what that looks like in mBlock. Those icons are going to be in your left side of your screen. We'll learn about what part of the screen this is in later in the lesson. But the green flag is going to allow you to play the game. And this is that full screen icon. It's this little square in the bottom left corner. So here are your instructions, and then I'm going to pause to let you play the game. you're going to go ahead and hit the green flag, and then you're going to begin playing this game. Begin playing this game. To play this game, you have the up and down arrows of the keyboard that control the vertical movement of your pilot, Panda, and you have the space key to shoot the cannonball from Panda's spaceship. Okay? So, up and down, once you hit the green flag, up and down, and you have the space bar to shoot a cannonball. Those are your only instructions. Go ahead and take a minute to play the game, and see if you can observe what's happening here. What's happening? Pay attention to all of the great things and maybe get an idea of how the game is functioning. Okay, so we'll take about 3 minutes to play the game. So I know some of you are still playing the game, but as you're playing, I want you to think about a few different questions. These questions are in the lesson plan, but so you don't have to read them, I'm just going to read them to you as you're playing the game. Be thinking about, what is the goal of the game? As you're playing, what is the goal of the game? How does the game end? Have you gotten to that point yet? The game end. When thinking about that game function and how the game functions, what causes the panda to change size? How do you gain and lose health points? What are the keystrokes or the user input used for? What does that control? What two numbers or values are being stored in the game? What causes those numbers being stored to change? So we're just getting some idea of how the So if you want to write a 1-sentence or 2-sentence explanation or description of how you played the game, the task that the lesson plan has the students do is they write an explanation of the game, and they do that in pairs. They do that with a partner. And when you're playing this game, it actually has the students compete to experience the game together, to talk about the game, see who can have a higher score. They're watching the other person play so they can observe the game while someone else is controlling it. And so they're benefiting there from being an observer as well as being the user of the game. And so there's a lot of benefit there in having them work together on this. Obviously, if you're home and you're doing this lesson independently with one learner, you can just have the parent can be involved, or the student or the learner can just answer some of the questions on their own. But the exploration activity is the students are going to explain in writing. They're going to write an explanation of the game. So if you are going to explain this game to a classmate, a parent, a sibling, how would you explain the game? And how would you answer, what is the goal of the game? How does the game end? And how does the game function? So for sake of time, let's go ahead and just write that in the chat box, one sentence, maybe two, just a quick explanation of the game. When your learners are doing this, I encourage you to have them add details. While you're walking around and observing or looking at it, give them feedback so they can get that example of what feedback should look like, because the lessons moving forward are going to encourage peer feedback. And so you need to model that feedback for them. Ask them the questions that are in the lesson plan that I asked you. Okay, I see how that you wrote an explanation of how the game functions, but I don't really understand from your explanation how is score kept. How does that work? Or wait, your explanation doesn't include how the user gets to control the characters. And give them those questions and those talking points so that they can go back and modify their explanation and provide more detailed explanation. Your goal here is to give your learner time to be able to express fully the complexities of what they observed while they played the game. At this point, we're not looking for them to write how the programming or the code worked. We're asking them to write how the game operates. So how as a user would you use this game? So basically, if this was an instruction sheet when you get a board game or a video game and it tells you how to control or play it, that's what we're looking for. Just some basic instruction. What this does is it allows your learner to decompose a problem. We're going to learn more about decomposing a problem as we go through the lessons. But decomposing a problem is breaking a big problem down to smaller parts. And that's what they're doing here. They're identifying some of those smaller parts. So I'm going to pop into the chat, see if anybody provided any quick explanations of the game. Not quite seeing any answers there. Some of you might still be playing. So the lesson plan gives the teacher or the parent a full explanation of how the game is played, so you as the parent can get some of those details in writing. They are not included in the slides because we don't want to provide the answer key to the student, but it's there for you as the parent to have. So once you write those instructions, the goal would be the lesson plan says to share those instructions with someone who has never seen the game before, and let that person try to play the game and understand the game with the instructions that you wrote. So that's a great opportunity for you can share that out. We're going to jump into now the hands-on portion of the lesson plan. There are a lot of screenshots in the lesson plan as well as in the slides, but we're going to begin by making our own program. We're going to look at how mBlock is laid out, that user interface that's there, and we're going to get familiar with the different parts of the screen. So you should have mBlock open or have it, be watching this on one screen for now, but somehow navigating between the two. I know that can be complicated in Zoom, but we're going to navigate between the screen that I'm sharing with you and your mBlock screen as we move forward. So programs in mBlock. Programs in mBlock. We learned at the beginning of this lesson that we learned about programming. We had a short discussion about it, but program is a set of instructions that can be executed by a computer to perform a specific task. The Space Adventures game is controlled by many programs. We can see an example of a program here on the slide, and in mBlock, it's a group of blocks. So we'll see a sequence of blocks in mBlock, which are programs. And we're going to begin by looking at this Space Adventures game as our example, but we're going to look at the interface. There are 4 main sections of the interface, okay? Along the top of our screen, we have our menu bar. Along the top of our screen, we have our menu bar. The menu bar has our file menu. It's where we can save. It's where we can share our project. It's also if you need to change the language. mBlock is actually translated into many, many languages, so you would change the language across the menu bar as well. On the left-hand side of our screen, which is shown here with a red border, is the stage area. The stage area of our mBlock interface is where we find our thumbnail or our stage. Up here in the top left corner is our stage. That's where we can interact with our sprites and see a preview and watch our program run. We have the ability to connect those hardware devices. So one of the benefits of mBlock is that we will be able to add hardware as we move along. We can control our sprites and our backgrounds here. The block area, which is this green border section, the block area is our library of programming blocks, and that we will be digging into many of these categories in future lessons. But that's where our programming blocks are. And then on the right side is our blue outlined area, which is our script area. And the script area is where we become the computer programmers and we get to program our projects in mBlock, which is very exciting. So we're going to do just that. We're going to do just that. We're going to go into mBlock, and at this time, I'm going to leave the PowerPoint slides, and I'm going to just show you from the mBlock interface these instructions, but you have them there for your reference, both in the slides as well as in the lesson plan. Okay. So while we are in mBlock, if you went into full screen mode, the bottom left-hand corner underneath your program is where you will exit full screen mode. And once you exit full screen mode, we will be back to our Space Adventures game. And we're going to make a new project. Making a new project or a new file in mBlock is very simple. We go to the File menu and we click New. It's going to ask you if you want to save. I do not want to save changes to the example program, so I'm going to hit Don't Save. And one of the very first things we want to do when we are in mBlock is if we are not working with hardware, we do not need to be on the Devices tab. So we're going to come over to the Sprites tab. All of our objects or characters in mBlock are called sprites, and a new project will always have the first sprite being Panda. So we're going to look at and use our character Panda. Now we're going to meet Panda, and we're going to use Panda for future lessons. So Panda is a fun little character we're going to see as we go through some of our lessons and programming our activities. So the basics of how mBlock works. We have Panda, and I know he's selected because there's a blue box around him. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the events category of our block area. And when we go to our block area, these categories here take us to blocks that are color coded. Our programming blocks are color coded. So we're going to go to the events section, and we're going to click on and drag. So it's a click and drag action to bring the when the green flag is clicked event over to our screen. When the green flag is clicked event over to our screen. And when we do that and we let go of our mouse, that block will now be in that script area that we discussed. And the script area is where we get to build our program, and we're building with blocks. So we're going to tell Panda to do something when we click the green flag. What we're going to tell Panda to do is in the motions. The motion category is the blue category of our block area. And we're going to go to the motion section, and we're going to just take that first block, move 10 steps, and again, we're going to click and drag. Now, if you watch closely, if I get close to the other block, the event block, do you see that gray shadow? That gray shadow tells me that when I let go, it's going to snap into place. So if I let go of my block, it's going to attach to my event block. So when the green flag is clicked, move 10 steps, and it attaches to it. These are now together. If I try and click and move them, by clicking on the top one, they will move together. This is our first program in mBlock. How exciting. So how do I play my program? Well, when we played Space Adventures, we learned that clicking the green flag starts our program. So you can, at this time, ask your learners to predict what's going to happen when I click the green flag. What's going to happen? This is a great way for them to learn about sequencing of actions, to stop and think about what's going to happen when they test and run a program. So when we click the green flag, we're going to watch my panda, and I'm going to make him a little bigger. Okay. When I click the green flag, did you see what happens? I'll play it again. There he goes. Try it on yours. When you click the green flag, panda should move forward 10 steps. Every time you click the green flag, he will move forward. So we learned in mBlock how to click and how to drag and drop our programming blocks. Now this was just a very, very simple program. We're going to build some more complex programs as we go through the lessons in the coming webinars. But I wanted to review a little bit. At the end of every lesson, there are questions to just touch base on some of the key points in the lesson. So one of the big objectives of this lesson was to be able to navigate and identify the portions of the mBlock interface. And so when we were in the Space Adventures game, what part of our interface was displaying our actual game? Where does the game show up? So I'm looking for here this section on the left side. Anybody wants to chime into the chat? What section is this on the left? Thank you, Steve. It is the stage area. The stage area is the area where we can see the actual game or run our program and see what's being run. That's our stage area. Perfect. And the answers to these questions will be in the lesson plan for those of you who are facilitating this lesson with your learners. So what is the button to start the program in Space Adventure? So A, B, C, or D, which one of those icons allows us to start our program? To start the program, it is going to be icon B, that green flag. The green flag. Great guys. Many of you got that correct. So which of the following options is wrong about programming? So we're looking for the wrong answer. Programming is limited to building blocks. Programming is the process of splicing the instructions so that the computer can understand in a certain order. Apps in mobile phones are developed by programming, and various games can be developed by programming. Number one, exactly. So programming is not limited to building blocks. We heard from Christy earlier that mBlock has the built-in functionality of allowing us to teach Python and to teach Arduino C. So we are able to teach text-based languages as well as in mBlock, and text-based languages are what the industry professionals use when they are programming. And so we can see how the lesson plans, the lesson plans progress and provide a lot of the details. And so the answers to all the questions are in the lesson plan, as well as some of those guiding talking points that I incorporated into my instruction. As we move forward with the future lessons, we will be learning a lot more about all of the different programming blocks that are available in mBlock. We'll learn how to combine these, we'll think critically, we'll solve problems, And we'll use these blocks to do that, to be able to communicate a message, whatever we want our program to do. We will be learning that as we go through and look at all these programming blocks and how they get put together. We'll begin to solve more complex problems. We'll see how to have multiple actions happening at one time. We'll learn a lot more about sequencing and sequencing our program so that it does what we want it to accomplish. And what we'll do as we move forward is we'll explore sprites. We'll explore how to change sprites, add more, change their costumes. We'll be jumping into adding backgrounds so we can set a scene and make our stage, like the Space Adventures game had a space background. We're also going to learn how to add user interactivity. How does this interact with the user? We'll look at that as we move forward as well. I look forward to being able to facilitate these for makeblock. And at this time, I'm going to pass the lesson or the webinar back over to Christy. And Christy's going to close us out. Christy, you're muted.
Go figure. Just wanted to say thank you so much. You're an excellent teacher, and I can't wait to watch your second lesson. Again, just as a reminder, we are going to be sending out emails with all of the lesson documentation and the downloads that you'll need in order to follow along with us and then repeat those lessons with your students and children. I'm going to show, let's see, share my browser so I can show you the hashtag, because we would love to see if you would like to share some feedback with us, or if you'd like to share with us something that you learned today on our webinar. This is our hashtag, #STEAM on board. We'd love to see you posting there. We'll be happy to tweet, repost, in order to share our great learnings from today. And then keep in mind, we will also be sending a follow-up of this particular webinar. So you will have the recording of the webinar. It's being posted to our YouTube channel as well. So you can stream it from our YouTube channel. And we will see you on Tuesday. Yep, no, this is the wrong page, sorry. It's here, I should have closed that out.
Tuesday.
Yeah, on Tuesday, there we go, April 7th at 10 a.m., same bat time, same bat channel. And I look forward to seeing everyone here. I'm going to hang out in the chat box for a little while. So if some of you have additional questions that you'd like to pose and get some answers to, we're happy to do that there. I saw a great question about other options instead of using Google. Do we have other options for sharing? So we'll be answering some of those questions for you. Just post them in the chat. And otherwise, I guess we'll see you next week.
Thank you guys, and I'll hang out as well for questions. And also, I want to remind you that it's still available for your colleagues to sign up, so they can go ahead and still sign up to participate in the upcoming lessons. It's not too late, so share as it was posted in the chat. Share the invitation link and invite your colleagues to join along in the fun.